To do well in mathematics, we need to have good building blocks. My name is Dr. Yap Banha, and today we are going to look at another building block in the topic of percentage. Sometimes we encounter situations in the real world. Sometimes that situation is given to us in a picture, in a diagram, sometimes in words, in the form of a story, and other times perhaps using graphs like line graphs, bar graphs, picture graphs, and other kind of graphs. For example, here I have a situation describing the quantities in different points in time. Maybe in 1 month, January, that is the number of items a shop sells. And that's the number of items it sells in February. And that's the number of items it sells in March. Can you see that the number of items sold increases from January to February and then decreases from February to March? We can describe the increase and the decrease using percentage. Let's learn about percentage increase. Can you see that the amount increases from January to February? Can you see that the increase is this amount? That amount is a fraction of what is sold in January. Can you see what fraction that is? This might help. Can you see the increase? The increase is that amount. And that amount is a fraction of what is sold in January. What is that fraction? Let's check. Did you get it right? The increase is that amount, and that amount is 1/4 of what is sold in January. So we can say that there has been an increase by 1/4. We can use percent to say the same thing. 1/4 is 25%. So we can say that the percentage increase is 25%. Now, let's learn about percentage decrease. From February to March, we can see the amount has decreased. Can you see the decrease? The decrease is that amount, isn't it? How can we describe the decrease? We can describe the decrease using fraction as well as using percent. The decrease is that amount. The decrease is that much. What fraction is that amount? Can we see that? The decrease is 2/5, isn't it? 2/5 of the amount sold in February. And 2/5 is actually how many percent? 1/5 is 20%, another 1/5, another 20. So 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, 100%. So 2/5 is also 40%. So we can say that the decrease is this amount, and that amount is 2/5 of what is sold in February. We can also say that in percent. So we can say the percentage decrease is 40%. Let's practice to become good at this building block. In this building block, we want to describe increase and decrease using percentage. Here, we can see the amount has increased from 4 blocks to 5 blocks. So this is a situation that involves an increase. Can you see how we can describe the increase using fraction? Can you see the increase? Can you say that that increase is what fraction of the amount at first? In green, is 1 cube out of 4 cubes, isn't it? So the increase is by 1/4. And 1/4 is how many percent? It's 25%, isn't it? So we can say the percentage increase is 25%. Let's practice to describe decrease using percentage. Here we have a situation that involves a decrease. The amount originally in orange, 5 cubes, and the amount afterwards in yellow, 3 cubes. How can we describe the decrease? Can you see the amount of decrease? It's 2 cubes, isn't it? Can we describe that decrease using fraction? 2 cubes out of what we have originally. In orange, 2 cubes out of 5 cubes. So we can say that it has decreased by 2/5. And what is 2/5 in percent? It's 40%, isn't it? So we can say that the percentage decrease is indeed 40%. It's your turn now. Let's master this building block of describing increase and decrease using percentage. Why don't you make some columns like that to describe amounts that are easy for us to describe percentage increase or decrease easily? Let us see whether or not the amounts I have created are easy to describe using percentage. In this column, there are 4. And then it increases to 5. Is that increase easy to describe using percentage? The increase is 1. And 1 is what fraction of the amount originally? 1 out of 4, 1/4. And that's 25%. Very easy to describe. How about from orange to dark green? That's an increase. It's an increase by 1. 1 out of what was before. In orange, 1 out of 5. That's 1/5. Is 1/5 easy to describe in percent? That's 20%, isn't it? That's easy. What about from dark green to white? The decrease is by 4. 4 out of what was originally? 4 out of 6. 4 out of 6. That's 2/3. Oh dear, 2/3 is not so easy for me to describe in percentage. How about from white to yellow? That's an increase by 1. 1 out of what was originally? That's in white. 1 out of 2? That's half, and half is simply 50%. So, an increase of 25%, an increase of 20%, that decrease is difficult to describe in percent, and then an increase of 50%. It's your turn now. Why don't you make some columns the way I did? But make sure the increase and the decrease must be convenient, must be easy for other people to describe. You can start with just 2 columns, but you can challenge yourself by making 3 columns, 4 columns, or even more. If you are by yourself, why don't you draw what you have created and then write down the answers at the back? And when you have a chance to meet your teacher, ask your teacher to try the questions and see whether or not your teacher managed to answer your questions. If you are with your friends, why don't you ask your friends to describe the increase and the decrease using percentages? And if you're at home, why don't you be the teacher and make your parents answer your questions? We have learned, we have practiced, and hopefully we have mastered this building block. In this building block, we look at how to describe increase and decrease using percentage. When we have 2 quantities, we ask ourselves, what was the amount before? What was the amount at first? The amount before is 6 cubes. What is the amount afterwards? What is the amount in the end? The amount in the end, 5 cubes. That's a decrease by 1. 1 out of how much? 1 out of what was originally. 1 out of what's in dark green. 1/6. 1/6 is not so convenient to write in percentage unless you have a calculator. What if the situation is the other way round? This is the amount at first. That is the amount in the end. We can see that in this case, there is an increase. An increase by 1 cube. 1 out of, remember, is always 1 out of the original. So 1 out of what's in orange. 1 out of 5. 1/5. And 1/5 is easily written in percentage. 20%. See you next time in another building block.